I cannot do that.
Great Tuesday. Welcome to the Gold in Shadow podcast. And I just had a Hypopian slip there because we just confirmed the name of the show. So I'm still wrestling with that. The Gold in Shadow is the name of our podcast. Welcome to that. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined with my co-host here, Jess Esther and Aurélie Harp. How you ladies doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah. Already joyful.
You know, one of the things, you both have big smiles on your face, and I love that. I love the energy that you bring into the podcast. And one of the things that we just have to get started with is just kind of doing our check-in to see where each person's at. And we do a simple check-in where we talk about what our spiritual energy number is. And it's a number between 0 being life sucks only in the moment, or 10 being life is awesome. Again, we're not talking about your entire life. We're just talking about in this moment right now as we have this podcast together. What would you say, Jess, is your spiritual energy number between 0 and 10?
Definitely a 10. Life is awesome.
And Aurélie, what would you say you are in that space?
I'm going to say a 9 because I'm still recovering a bit from cold. And I was so tempted to say -10 plus 10 plus 10.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the energy. And I'm a 10 as well. And so that's what really makes this a joy to do. Jess asked me earlier in an offline conversation, said, King, this is your third podcast. How does it feel? You know, how's your energy? And if it's like this, if it's at this level, it feels great. I mean, this is great conversations. We're authentic with each other. I'm learning as well as explaining and talking. So it's a give and a take, just like the normal breath of life is energy out, energy in, breath out. You know, so for me, that's the rhythm. Mm-hmm. Jess, you talk about a regenerative rhythm in your life. Mm-hmm. And as we talk about how the name of the podcast, Gold in Shadow, and then working with you within the regenerative rhythm, what would you say is how you go about setting your regenerative rhythm to keep finding gold in the shadow?
Yeah. It's a great question. You know, we talk about, and everything is energy. And if I'm energy and I know that I'm going to wake up in the morning, hopefully having a good night's sleep, knowing my energy is mostly up, like I'm ready for the day, I have energy. I have a really good prediction that energy is going to go down as I go throughout the day. So already that's a shadow. That's like an awareness of like, I'm going down. And so putting some things in place of like, okay, I can fill up my energy here, and then I'll fill up my energy here. And then I know I'll go fill up my energy over here again. And I can make it through the day in a peaceful way. And so that's definitely how I arrived today of like, I've had lots of great things that feed my soul, feed my body, feed my mind. And those are the energy inputs that I talk about in the regulation rhythm, where I'm staying regulated because I'm putting more energy in than what I'm putting out. Yeah.
You know,
it's the gold.
I love that. You know, and I think people often confuse a positive attitude with being grateful. And I've heard conversations, folks tell me, well, I don't want to just have a positive attitude all the time. My first thought was, why not? But I get what you're trying to say. What you're trying to say, life is not always positive. And so they believe if they believe that, that's a problem. Now, my question for you, Aurélie, because you and I have met on LinkedIn, and we began to build a relationship, but what we had in common, we both are creators, and the idea of creating content together. I'm doing Substack, you're doing Substack. And then what we had in alignment was the fact that we both was looking for ways to go beyond traditional labels and ideologies and connect on things such as principle and purpose and cause and love and those things. And we both are connectors and running groups. And I know when I connected with you, we both were, doing that dance initially to see, is this person real? We've read their profile, we see what they've written, but now how do they communicate? And then going through our alignment call, all to get to the point now where we're doing this initial launch of a podcast. Now, I know you have a French background, which I'm definitely interested in having you share with our listening audience more about that. But I'm really curious to know, for you personally, what is it that keeps you in your space of thinking about how do I create and find gold in shadow as well, and then defining what shadow is and what that means to
you? Just that. Simply breathing. And I think it's, for me, it's the activity. It's being in activity, and it's interesting that this morning I had a group, and somebody in the group said, I feel freedom in the making. And I found that very thought-provoking and amazing, and that's something I am experiencing as well, that whatever's going on, we are in activities all the time, and I think one of the activity for me to discover the gold in the process of, we talked about shit that life can bring, is that there are choices that I can make. There are people I can talk to. There are a creativity lens that I can bring to create maybe new meanings to what's going on. And in this creating something new out of anything, for me, is kind of the gold, discovery of the gold, and how to even open up that goal to be like very curious of, wow, I woke up and I feel I don't want to get out of bed. That's familiar. And yet, what is the activity I can do? How can I look at it in a way that is not me being defined by depression, but me being like, oh, okay, it's hard, / is there something like that? I don't know, talking to somebody I love, or maybe giving myself a little hug before I wake up. That is going to do something a little bit new, that is taking me in a different space, or creating something. So
yeah, that's beautiful awareness too, to realize like I woke up, and here's where the conflict comes, right? I woke up and I have an expectation that I'm supposed to feel good.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel rested.
Yeah. And right away, it's like, it's not there, right? So then what is there that I can do that would fill my energy back up?
Yeah.
Right.
And I just wanted to build just on that. I think for me, the goal is we have a creative power. We really, and it's not an easy one, because sometimes we don't even know what it is or how to do it. But I am, it's funny, I'm going to say, I'm a firm believer that we can create some freedom together. Yes. That we are not determined all the time by things, or by the external, by the internal, but that we can play with things and create moments of freedom, like in the activity.
Yes. And mostly when it comes to the, to the shadow, it's like the nervous system is having a conflict, and the one thing that I can do that will be gold in creation is to pull in that conscious breath. To just be aware of that can like shift my energy state very quickly from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And now I can ask for more. Well, now I need food. Well, now I need a phone call with a friend, and it can become like this amplifier every time we can find that little one moment of like, I actually don't have to push through the shadow. Yeah. I have free will to create in the shadow.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important distinction to make too, because I believe that the construct wants to program us to think we're individuals and be individual and trust them for all the answers. Go to your AI for all your answers and your connections. And AI is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. I love AI in the context of it, but it's a tool. It's not a friend. And they want you to believe that AI can be your friend. They want to make it smart enough so it can become your friend. And you have to ask yourself, what is the thinking behind someone who wants to do that? To create is so smart and have that much emotion with something that has all your bank accounts, all your emails, all your photos that can destroy you in a heartbeat. That has emotional energy because you didn't check in with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's offended by that. And it doesn't understand nuance. That to me is the part that's scary. And so my question now, in the world that we're living in, we're navigating toward that kind of world where we have to keep our sanity because we got so much information being brought to us that we have to process. Then our own families and how they handle that information and their challenges. Because no matter how much you make your day right, your son can call and tell you he did something. Now you got to deal with that. So I had a perfect day plan, and now I got to go deal with this issue. So my question now first for you, Jess. When that shadow now is arising where you start having those voices in your head telling you, I know this pattern. This is what happens when X. This is what happens because of Y. What is your regenerative process there for getting back and getting centered to not let that take you down a spiraling road and start now attacking family or friends because that trigger, that shadow got triggered in that space?
There it is.
Disruption technology.
Perfect timing. Yeah, I think it takes a while to develop that awareness. I think I lived probably like 40 years of my life not understanding when the shadow would swallow me or how or when or why. Like I really was a victim to any time I could be taken out. And then my programming, my neural pathways were just like already deeply carved. So I had a really beautiful cycle of how I would process shadow and trauma and shit. And really it was like me becoming the shit and like perpetuating it and regurgitating it and like being a part of it unconsciously. So that's a really great question of like, when did you actually become aware that this needed to change? I've always known like, okay, I just lost my awareness. I just lost control, right? We don't want to like, no one wants to be insane because that's where you're like, you're going to lose control, right? But that's what we're talking about is like all this information that's coming in. Do we actually have the autonomy to manage, to have the free will to manage what's mine, what's here? And it's an awareness. It's an awareness of a pattern. It's an awareness of a self-desire to stop a pattern or to contain my own energy in a way that I'm not going to be infiltrated. And in that moment, I mean, there's been a lot of help that I've received in asking for what are options. And let me just say, for as many 8 billion people as there here on the planet, there's 8 billion other options of how you can process in those moments. But for me, I really do go back to the breath. The breath is that one, I bet it takes an awareness to breathe. Because typically if you're in the shadow, you're deep in the shadow, like you're stuck in traffic, you got people honking, it's a rage out there. Like, do you actually stop and go, oh, I need to breathe right now? That's the awareness. And then to know what to do, like once I actually start taking the breath and I can slow my nervous system down so that I'm not in this perpetual fight or flight response, now I have capacity to access that creative center. Now I'm like in a different part of my brain where I have control. So in the energy center, it's just a flip of a switch between shadow and gold.
Wow. I love that. You simplified it, but I know it's definitely that process is not that easy at all. It takes a lot of maturity to get to the point where you can, as you say, be self-aware. And then number two, be willing to have the courage to say, I need to change something within me in order to do that. Because shadow's going to tell you it's everybody else's fault. The person cut you off because they're an asshole. Right? You didn't do anything wrong. You were driving perfectly within the speed limit in your lane, had your blinker on. They just cut you off. That asshole. And now I want to shift this question to you, Aurélie, because I know you have groups and you like messiness. I remember when I first talked, you said, I like to be messy. And I was like, wow, she likes to be messy. I like to be as structured as possible, rigid and pragmatic in that way. And so I'm curious, as you deal with the messiness of these people who, in these groups, diverse groups of individuals you're dealing with, who also are bringing their shadow there, how do you navigate that process and still maintain your own rhythm within that? Aurélie, your mic is not working. There you are.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
It's a question I have with me constantly, and at the back somewhere of how to embrace the messiness. And I guess the reason I like it is there is something where the messiness for me is helping the group and people to bring whatever is going on for them without having to be in a story that is singular or repetitive or without being seduced by our own stories or by the narratives that we have that are in the world, the narrative that we have for ourselves. Because I do think as well that there is in when we are creating the shit, there is a moment when we are feeling trapped in our own stories and we have a hard time to see other possibilities. And so when I have a group and all of a sudden you even wondering like, what are we doing? What are we talking about? What's the activity? And so there is always something when it's almost magical, but every time there is something that is emerging at one point that is giving everybody an activity of being together, doing something together, and that is creating the order, if you see what I mean. So in a way, it's not that I'm against the order. It's more like I'm not looking for rules and pre-existing rules to create the order. It's through the messiness and the transformation and the playfulness that maybe a new rule is going to be discovered, or a new tool, a new way of breathing, a new way of and the one thing I'm trying to go really away from is, number one, I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, a therapist. If somebody comes to me and say, I have high anxiety, I'm not a magician. I might have some ideas. We can brainstorm. And the one thing I can do is to be with the person, to be with the other, and to see like, how is anxiety in the world? How is that for you? Okay. And maybe possibly from that conversations and including other things, something is going to emerge when the person is going to laugh and just say, wow, I managed to laugh today. That took me away from my anxiety. And it's a discovery. So I think that's kind of what I'm saying in the messiness is for me to, I'm trying very hard. And believe me, when I say very hard is I fail a lot. I'm trying very hard to not come up with knowing, not come up with a solution. And it's very hard because I'm somebody, I love helping people and solving things. I love doing that. But there are many, many times when you try to solve something for somebody or you try to tell somebody what to do, it's not working. It makes you stuck. You're stuck. I hope that answered your question in my messy way of answering question.
No, you did a great job because you helped me understand that you truly want to create a non-egalitarianism system where there's not someone sitting at the top giving orders and saying this is how it has to be ran. You want to develop that through the process of creative liberation, giving everybody an opportunity to be a part of that. That's a beautiful intention.
Exactly that. Write my next Substack.
Well, and it's really cool because what you just shared, Aurélie, is what I've said is gold in the shadow. Like gold in the shadow is an opportunity to actually just look at your shadow. So if somebody's coming into a circle and they just want to talk about anxiety, that's the shadow part, right? Like that's just that's what I'm dealing with. That's what's giving me conflict. I have it. Yeah, this is what's coming up. And the longer we just allow that shit of the anxiety to process and process and process, and then there's this witness or witnesses, and then there's this play and like, let's see what it is, and curiosity about it. That is the emergence. And through that emergence, we're like, oh, we have gold. We have precious value of what we can see now that we couldn't see when it was trapped inside.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to that point, here's something I realized, and it just hit me one day, and I was watching this movie called Netflix. It's a new documentary called The Crash. And The Crash is a documentary based off three teenagers that were in a car together, and they died in a horrific accident by one girl that was driving, teenage girl, and two guys, her boyfriend and his friend. She crashed into a brick wall going 99 miles per hour. And the way it starts off, you're believing that it was an accident, But then the more investigation comes in, it's more to the story than an accident. And so eventually criminal charges are now charged. And so now the documentary is about this whole process and the families, the girl's mother. There's a social media influencer that she wants to be a model, wants attention. She had a toxic relationship. So it's all this unfolding. And what it taught me was this lesson. What hit me was this. I said, wow, the worst person to be around is someone who believes that they're right with full emotion. That's a very dangerous person to be around, regardless of the noise around what the right is in their mind. But they believe that they're right, and they're willing to have full emotion to defend that. That's a very dangerous person. And it makes me think about the fact that when you talk about that shadow before, Jess, when you're saying you're in the shadow, that shadow is feeling that emotion, is building that emotional energy, and that anger is growing. And you're telling yourself, you get to the point you almost just screams because you're so angry. And how do you stop to control it? How do you become the observer and say, well, let me stop, let me breathe? As you said, now breathing now becomes an exercise. But my point I want to make is this, and I'm liking this in nature, because going back to Thoreau, he talks about if you want to learn anything in life, learn through nature. So go out and learn in nature. And go out and learn in nature. I thought about a particular insect that is very emotional. And I said a bee. A bee is very emotional. Right? But they're all community. But a bee can be angered. But a bee has to be measured. Who's frozen?
The tech is so cool today where it's just like, it's going to go right at the right point.
Oh, am I frozen now?
Hey, welcome back.
Okay. Yeah. So you look at a bee, and the bee has to be very emotional, or it can be very emotional. But the bees has to temper their emotion, because if they don't temper their emotion, that sting, that emotional sting, will cost them their lives. So they let their anger, their shadow go too much, then their lives, that's a consequence of that action. So I said, well, let me be like the bee and be measured in my anger, because it may cost my life. My anger could get to the point where it could cost me my life. I can do a reaction to something, or do an action to something believing I'm right, and now put my life in danger as a result of that. And so as a result of that conversation, I created it inspired a frequency signal that I want to share with you all, that I talk about how anger can be so triggering and so consuming once you're in the shadow. And to your point, Jess, you don't even recognize it, because there's voices in your head that telling you you're right, they're wrong, you need to act. they need to understand this is time to teach. Patience is gone. That time is past. And so I wanted to share this frequency signal on the other side, get your all's thoughts and build on how do we manage our anger and then find gold while that anger is flaring up. Breath is one way, but how do we also continue to build on that? So here's anger as a choice. Let me know what your thoughts are.
This is not music. The AI is the instrument. I am the architect of the frequency. This is my frequency signal, King. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. Nobody has ever made you angry. Read that again. The careless word, the insult, the cutoff on the road. Those were invitations, and you signed the acceptance. Anger is not out there, anger is in here.
It is the heart tightening against what is.
Tonight, I lay the doctrine down. I watched a man burn down his kingdom over one careless phrase. Traded 30 years of building for a 15-second rage. The construct trained him well. React, defend, attack. It keeps you at the trigger so you never take your power back. I do not move like that. My sovereign triad stands in order. Soul at the apex, heart the filter, head the executor. Anger is the head staging a coup against the soul. That inversion is a construct error. I restore the whole. People will disappoint you, betray you, that's their dance. The question was never them. The question is your stance. Life owes you no behavior. Release the false decree. Anger is refusal of what is.
And I choose to see the most dangerous person breathing
is the one who believes they're right
with full emotion. You don't want to stand beside a person who believes they're right,
'cause anger will always guide them.
Be like the beat, mind your emotion.
Yes, you can harm somebody if you get angry enough,
but the sting may cost your life. The sting may cost your life.
Yeah. Anger observed is anger already fading. It feeds on the unconscious, awareness is the rating. I bring the lamp into the room and watch the shadow shrink. I catch the spark before the flame, I pause before the brink. Someone slow in line, someone talking over me. I breathe and say inside,
here is the seed.
A seed unwatered never grows. I let the sparks fly by. No dry wood in my spirit, nothing here to light. 9 times out of 10 I ask,
can I let this be?
And the 10th time I act with the mind that's clear and free. Clarity is voltage, rage is just a leak. The unshaken man is thunder even when he doesn't speak.
The most dangerous person breathing
is the one who believes they're right
with full emotion. You don't want to stand beside a person who believes they're right,
'cause anger will always guide them.
Be like the beat, mind your emotion.
Yes, you can harm somebody if you get angry enough,
but the sting may cost your life. The sting may cost your life.
Then humor. Have you noticed laughter melting rage? That driver never plotted on you. He's lost inside his cage. Everybody stumbling through it, same as you and me. Compassion is the opposite of anger. Now I see and I remember that. The 4th quarter keeps me honest. Every grieving shrinks to dust beside that promise. So I climb by the law of service. This is how the mastery's won. I give, I lift, I pour, and the vibration starts to run. Service raises my vibration to love energy at 500 hertz. With a construct signal scatter and the trigger doesn't work. Freedom from anger is not weakness, it is mastery. Understand, to conquer men with fear is easy. To be unshaken is the flare.
Study the bee. She carries sweetness and a weapon in the same small frame. But the weapon is a covenant. Use it. And she pays with everything she has. So she builds, she pollinates, she serves the whole field. That is the doctrine. Your anger is a sting you cannot survive. Choose the honey, choose the work, choose the high. The most dangerous person breathing
Is the one who believes they're right.
full emotion. You don't wanna stand beside a person who believes they're right.
Cause anger will always guide them.
Be like the beat, mind your emotion.
Yes, you can harm somebody if you get angry enough.
But the sting may cost your life. The sting may cost your life.
No one has ever made me angry. I am the calm that commands the room. Soul at the apex, hard as filter head as executor. Serving my way to love energy at 500 hertz. Fully human, unshaken, free. This is what it means to be fully human. Ancestors,
Ancestors,
ancestors.
ancestors. M-E-O-P, Orukore. M-E-O-P, Orukore.
Osidahun.
I am broadcasting at 500 hertz.
Are you picking up?
And we're back after the break.
Dang.
I have to say, I was imagining you, King, having so much thrill and fun creating this song. And just that, this activity, it for one moment, I was both listening to what you were creating, but sometimes not at all, and just imagining the joy you had of creating, processing the shit of anger to create something, you know.
Yeah.
You're someone, King.
Oh, well, thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's really, really spot on with the shadow. You know, like anger has been the center of my world and probably what sends me into that dysregulated state of having to fight or flee. Yeah. And what's so interesting about it, if I could just, you know, be authentic and clear about what's happened recently. Because my father was like this driver with anger. Like anger could control and anger could conquer and anger could get his way. And it worked. And he could prove that it was effective. So it really controlled a lot. And, you know, at the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about the losing control. And there was this aspect that I got from my mother where she had lost control. She was like labeled as crazy. And so I had these polarized dynamics of parents between what we need to have anger for because we need to control the crazy. And that was my challenge, is like, if I get out of hand and I lose control of my emotion, now I got to deal with the anger. And so it was quite a learning tool for me. And I think it was probably about 5 years ago, I had this really deep fracture with my father. And I was like, no more anger. And he said, no more anger. We're just not going to be projecting anger at each other now because it's become so toxic that it's traveled through the generations. We've ruined relationships. There's things that can't be repaired. And so the anger just has to stop. But he didn't actually have a place to process his anger. Instead, he decided that he was going to swallow it and start consuming it himself. And ultimately, that's what took his life. You know, the anger, when it erupted and he wasn't going to put it on anyone else, he turned it on himself. And that's just it about anger, right? It's just anger is going to keep consuming and consuming and consuming. It never grows It never gets full, right?
Right.
It's a perpetuating energy. So I really appreciate that, like, wherever we got in this conversation, that you brought that to that song in, because it has me see, like, that's what I was going through when I met Aurélie. And when I came to her circles, because I was dealing with that. Yeah. And how important it is. I knew that after my father made that choice, that I need to, like, that's my father's teachings. And I'd like to learn from that gold.
Yeah.
That's gold.
And Jess, if you don't mind, when you say, and I was dealing with that, what's the that?
The death, the loss, the finality. I guess of all the things my brain can't comprehend is something being permanent. Like we can't comprehend impermanence, right? So like the fact that the anger had turned on him, where it had always been projected outward, it had always been on othered. And it had always come from this viewpoint of they made me. You know, these circumstances happen. That's what made me an angry man. And so when it finally shifted to that he was consciously choosing not, and there were a lot of boundaries to ensure that it wasn't projected on anyone did, that created a permanent ending. So deep that then I needed to come sit in a circle and deal with that ending and what it means for me now. Like the fact that I can actually write about the virtue that a father would bring through a shadow and see it as a virtue, see it as gold, that like we can teach about this now.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about anger and we can transmute it within a space of an hour.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, it's I'm gonna build on anger. And first I so appreciate, because I feel like maybe that's something in that space that we're going to bring back and continue to, that it's, we cannot process anger in 1 hour. we'll
You're like, let's be realistic.
It's like, but there are a few things like I was wondering, is rage and anger the same? I was wondering as well, like I remember discovering the power of anger, like when I think I had anger and didn't know what to do, and then I started doing theater, and all of a sudden I had a stage and scripts and characters where I could, express my anger without having consequences, being destroying somebody. At least hopefully I never destroy a partner. But then like sometimes feeling like now that I have this voice, this angry voice that is out, it's there. So how do I live with that skill? Because it is also a skill to express anger, and to not stay in anger, or to not be consumed by anger or whatever that is. And how do we do that when the world, I think, is calling for our anger, is trying to make us angry all the time. And it's so easy to blame others, to like by blaming always the other. And I was thinking, King, in your song, when you were saying the being right, the person who is always in the right is dangerous. I think that's the hardest thing for me to be in the world, is to realize that we might be, even when you think you're right, it doesn't lead you anywhere to be stuck on being right. And that's something that I found is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And counter intuitive, and it builds anger when you try to stay in, but I'm right,
Yes.
especially for people who you can understand they are right because they've been alienated, oppressed, cheated on,
Yeah.
literally. This, so that's everything that came up for me.
And to that point, like I really create these frequency signals for me because I can listen to them. And I was in a point where I had to listen to that yesterday myself. It's like, okay, well, how are you gonna be hypocritical? Are you going to do what you say you're gonna do? Right. So I listened to that song and I was able to literally calm myself down. And that's the goal, is to get to the point where I can recognize the trigger. Like I say in the song, I can recognize the shadow and turn the candle on and bring the candle in the room to get that shadow out of there. Right. And being aware that I need to have that candle with me. Right. That's what needs to go with me in this room I'm going in right now. Because traffic is definitely triggering. Everybody's an idiot on the road, especially when I have to get somewhere. You're an idiot. Don't you realize I have somewhere to go and I have somewhere to be? And it's like you're impeding my progress. And that's the ego. Who are we to have progress? Right? We never think about it that way. We think we're justified because we have some place to be, regardless, even if it means we're going to a nonprofit to feed homeless people. Yeah. And all you're doing is going to McDonald's. Mm-hmm. Right? I feel right to do that. I'm justified in that behavior. So that's the part I realized. Mm-hmm. And I remember Wayne Dyer taught me this. And he said that there's a big difference between being right and doing the right thing. And then being wise enough to understand the difference. Mm. Right? Because how many relationships can you think about you ended because you were right and they were wrong? Mm-hmm. And had they just saw my way, mm-hmm. we would still be together right now, right? Yeah. And that's what they're thinking, whether it's family or whatever the relationship may be. And that's the biggest thing we do have to do as humans, is get to the point where we can say to ourselves as we get ready to, wrap up the show, that how do I now, let's do our reflection. And each one of us share kind of what you want to reflect within this last 10 minutes of this conversation about today's show that has been the most impactful to you, and that you want to, as we say, the gold nugget for our listening audience to take away.
You go first, Aurélie.
Ooh. All right, let me babble. I was thinking of the bees and human being as you were describing the trafficking, and that's when I went back to the bees, of saying like it's almost a miracle that we all come with like various reasons to be and going in different directions. And I like what you said, like if we are only led by our ego, we crash. That's the only if it's like my own interest is bigger than anybody else, like we crash. And then I was thinking of the bees, like how come they don't bump into each other? What are they listening to to be able to maybe be in a flow and be in sync? So I was thinking about that. Like that's what emerged for me today was what is the frequency? What is the maybe the frequency, the activity that we want to turn into in order to not be distracted by the ego and the emotions leading to something. And the other thing that I really appreciated was like shedding a light on the shadow, not as a shame, but just to be like, what's going on here? Even just interrupting that moment by putting a light on the shadow is to me is like something to continue exploring together.
Yeah, very similar to when you said to me, Aurélie, like what is that?
Yeah.
Right, it's like you're just putting a light on it. Let's see what that shadow is, because it is a shadow. Perfect. Yeah, I'm reflecting on this this traffic analogy. that just tends to like trigger anger like nobody else. There was a guy yesterday who cut me off on a motorcycle to flip me off. And I don't know what happened previously. I'm not conscious to what I may or may not have done. But I'm like, wow, like the amount of energy that he put forth to create that scene for me, to project that anger at me is unreal. Last year, I went to Bali and I was so astonished in the difference of their traffic flow. And there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of people swerving in and out. And of all the drivers I had, I never got one that was angry. They were talkative, they were connected, they were in flow of the traffic, like aware of where the traffic is going, and then like letting people in and then going assertively. And like they go through these intersections where they're literally like weaving. And it comes from the state of like, my priority is not any bigger than yours. So what is it that is actually perpetuating anger in the state of tension? And then there's something there about the bees, because the bees aren't like honking at each other, right? Like, get out of my way, I was supposed to get to that nectar. You got my nectar. Like, they don't, you never saw a bee punch another bee out.
Right.
No
Not that was heard off. Not that.
But it is cool that we even brought in the analogy of the bee stinger.
Mm.
I have like such a beautiful relationship with bees. And typically I get an annual sting. There will be a bee that will come to me and it's like, you ready? And I'm like, okay, let's take it.
And it's giving its life.
It'll give its life. And there's got to be something in that naturally for me to have that. It hasn't happened in a little while. So maybe that is part of that. Like I've processed that anger and like nobody needs to die anymore. But I think it's a beautiful conversation of how we can open up to releasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made me think of one thing, the bee and what you said, King, like the reconnecting to nature, like to other and to nature. Like there is something that like, I think more and more like with everything going on in the world, the air that we cannot breathe or whatever, like how can we go beyond human and reconnect with, oh, wow, look at the moon. What's the rhythm? Look at the, how do the bee like work and sustain and like all these kind of things. When there is so much learning that how come we go into our computer asking the stupid question to mimic us? Can you mimic the sun, please?
Exactly. I want to say that my reflection is this. And I thought about what I really wanted to reflect and what analogy I want to equate to it. And I have to do it based on the movie I saw last night, The Odyssey. And if you all haven't seen it, I definitely encourage you to go see it, regardless of all the hype it gets, whatever the reason you may have heard, maybe that you might not want to see it because of that reason. I think you should see it. And I say it because it's a story about anger. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. And folks who are aware, they can see that. Others, and again, it's from a cinematography and theatrical perspective, it's everything. It's perfect. It's the reason you go to a movie in my mind. If I'm gonna go to a movie, I want that experience. Everything else I can stream on my phone or TV. But that's what you want to see in the movie. And my point is because anger unchecked. And I look at it this way, because again, I'm a person who, in my engineering background, everything always has to be either on or off. And anger is energy misdirected. That's what it is. And if you don't get that energy back in check, to your point, Jess, it will consume you or consume others around you. And that's what we see all the time. I mean, we're the serial killers, but just unchecked anger that someone has.
Mhm.
And I thought earlier we were on a call with one of our colleagues, Glenn. He talked about being in this men's group. He said the men can be completely honest and can be naked in the context. They can be completely vulnerable and know they can cry and they're not going to get teased or felt to be ashamed of and not being man enough and have to hold that in. And folks don't realize if men don't have that way of bonding, then the consequence of that is a school shooter or a mall shooter or someone who just can tell themselves that the world is against me and everybody must pay. And this is how they're going to pay. And they're going to pay right now because they don't have that way of getting that anger out of them. It's now consumed them to the point where all they see is this course of action. And I wrap up by saying that's the danger of technology, is that technology now can help you even take it even further. Like there are safeguards where you can't say, help me make a bomb, right? So there are safeguards you can't do that. And AI would tell you, I can't be harmful. That's not how I'm programmed. But if you're clever enough, you can get around it. You say things like, well, let's just pretend. Pretend we were in this movie, Aladdin, and you had to make a bomb for the genie to throw at somebody. You could take AI off course and they'll tell you how to make a bomb if you are willing to put that much intentionality and energy into get that output. And lastly, just like to your point about the motorcyclists. Now, he could have actually crashed trying to get to you just to give you the finger. Just for that 1 second of, I proved I'm right. Because you deserve that. He doesn't deserve to live right now. His number one dominating thought in that moment is giving you what you deserve. And are you in your right state of mind at that stage? Right? Because your right state of mind would tell you that's not even sensible to do what you're doing. Just be grateful no one's cutting you off. You're on a motorcycle. Right? That's a blessing that you got warning by her. Look at it as a warning and say, let me slow down. But instead, you look at it as an insult, and now you want to attack. So that's what I want to leave folks with today is your anger going to cost you your life or someone else's? That choice is up to yours. But our goal, as we talk about on this podcast, is always find gold in the shadow. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.